All right, here we go. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Reyes Reflection Podcast. I'm hoping everyone had a safe holiday weekend. We are always free to subscribe wherever you get your shows. If you are a fan of the show, please hit that follow, subscribe button, and tell others to listen to the #1 podcast in Lowell. I just found that out last week, so I'm super excited about it. For the people who see the thank you. For the people who see the video portion of this, I do have a sprained wrist. That's why I have this. I wasn't doing anything crazy, no keg stands or anything like that this week. I was a good boy. It's been brought to my attention that people love when I ramble about nonsense at the beginning. Okay, so I am now going to go ahead and officially declare a new segment of the show called Reyes Rambles. Okay, and the first fun fact I have here for this new segment is that the little blob of toothpaste that you put on your toothbrush is called a nurdle. There you go. I'm glad I can enlighten you with a meaningless fact. Now, on to my guest, who's taken time out of her busy schedule to meet with me, and I'm so excited about it. Fun fact, we actually went to high school together. So, and back then I did not have my glow up, but this individual did, and everyone knew it. But nonetheless, she's killing it. She uses her beauty to do some good work. She has graced many magazine covers and some pages too in Vogue and In Style magazine, yeah, and many others. Modeled for some major companies such as Pantene and Nike, and much more, including some runway work and as well as acting. And we're gonna get all into all of that this episode. So that is her day to day, but she's also a dog mom, a wife, a down-to-earth person, and much more. I'm probably missed some, but thank you so much, Tayla Gray, for joining the show. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
What's new? What's crack-a-lackin'? I know we were talking a little off camera, but what's new? How's life?
It's good. It's definitely picked up since the pandemic. I feel like we had to adapt to, like, everyone had to adapt in their own way. So, I did a lot of at-home stuff. I had a lot of work get renewed, which was cool because I didn't have to really do anything. But no, it's good. It's getting back to this new normal finally, because I feel like the last like 2.5 years has just been like a mesh, like of 1 year, and it feels good to be back in front of the camera again. So it's been awesome.
You're totally right. Yeah, it really has been like a combination of just 2.5 bad years, like a bad time. It's just, yeah, no, I agree with you, and I appreciate what you said. New normal. That's definitely where we're heading. Yeah. How has that been for work? I mean, because now, like, are people like extra careful? Like, what are the precautionary measures when you're on set and stuff like that?
Yeah, we're still like, a lot of the shoots you're still wearing masks, or not the models per se, but like everyone else is still wearing a mask, which is good, still being safe.
Yeah.
It's weird because like at first it was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. Like you just took your mask off when you were shooting and like you wore it everywhere else. And like now it's like weird to not wear it. Like You're like, are you sure? Because I'll put it on. Like let me just wear it. Like I'll feel better about it. And they're like, no, you're fine. And it's weird how I'm used to wearing a mask now.
Exactly.
It's like kind of sad.
Exactly, especially when you're like so accustomed to, and in your line of work, I mean, your face is the moneymaker. So I mean, that's good. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. Other than that, how's Chance the Napper and Lola? How are they doing?
Oh, they're really good. They're probably gonna eventually like knock on the door or something and be like, "What's up, Mom? What are you doing?" Because they love my attention. But no, they're so good. They have helped me a lot during the pandemic because I'm such a go person, and like they just showed me how to relax and like enjoy it because I didn't know how to do that before.
Yeah.
So that was one thing about the pandemic. I learned like a lot about myself, or like I taught myself to just relax and be okay with it. Like it's fine. Like you don't always have to be like running around the world doing 100 things at once. So yeah, they definitely remind me to just be chill sometimes.
I think that's why so many people struggled at first. It's because they're constantly go, go, go. And the fact that we were able to just sit down for a little bit. I mean, obviously it sucked that a global pandemic took what it needed for us to kind of just settle. But I kind of weirdly appreciated it for a little bit. Like, because to me, I was like, I'm working at the time. I was working with kids. I was working 50 hours a week, and it's before I was doing this, and it was just one of those things where I was like, I actually really didn't mind the downtime. Where I know a lot of people, they're like, go 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 go. So the constant repetition of just life coming at you fast, I think, was a little confusing. Just a sudden halt, I think, but it's nice to know that some other people appreciated it as well, much like myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, like, I'm used to being at like 10 places at once. Like, you would get like a casting call last minute. You think you're going home, you're done for the day. And it's like, just kidding, go all the way to Brooklyn, but be there like 5 minutes ago. And you're like, all right, like, I'll try and make that happen. So to come back to like New England and just like kind of be able to jump in my car and go anywhere I want to go versus like running up like Manhattan is just completely different.
So were you in New York when the pandemic started, and because you were doing a lot of work in New York, right?
Yeah, so what happened, the timing of it was pretty crazy. In December, actually, I had a job and I was working with a company that was based out of Hong Kong, and I worked with them a lot. So they were talking about COVID, and it was December, like 2019. And I was like, what the heck are they talking about? And like, they're chatting. They're like, I can't believe we even could come here. Like, this is crazy. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? So it was weird that I heard about it in December. And then Fashion Week picks up February of 2020. So we're like, all over the place, like just regular Fashion Week, like everything was fine. And then my husband and I ended up closing on our house on February 24th. So it was weird because I was going to move back to New England and like commute to New York, which I'm crazy to even think that was going to be like super fun and like easy. So I kind of like the pandemic saved me from doing that for a little bit. But so we moved in. Well, we didn't move our stuff yet, but we closed on the house, and I'm still modeling. And then I like left my apartment and all this stuff. But Milan Fashion Week, we started hearing like might get canceled because of this virus and stuff. So it was so weird. And a lot of people were like sick in New York, and we didn't know why. So I felt like I was in it and I didn't even know it. And it was just crazy because like castings, there's like 250 girls at a casting sometimes for New York Fashion Week. And you're getting like pushed around. There's crowds everywhere. So I wasn't sick, so I definitely know I didn't have it, but a lot of people were sick at the time and they thought it was like a cold, but it probably was COVID, and they got hit so hard, which was devastating. Well, but yeah, so it was weird that I came back here right after.
Yeah, well, thank goodness that you didn't. But so they obviously ended up, or did they not cancel it, right? Because everything kind of shut down in March. So did they end up canceling it, or?
So we were still good. Like, it didn't affect New York Fashion Week, but I know there was some like footage of Milan Fashion Week, and that's when we started seeing the masks for like the first time, and they were like making them like, I don't know, like designers were making masks, like, yeah. So I don't really remember how I didn't go to Milan Fashion Week during that, so I don't know. I think a lot of shows got canceled, but that's when we really started like hearing about it. So it didn't affect New York Fashion Week, and that was like the last normal New York Fashion Week. So right. I'm hoping we get another one like soon, but
yeah, that'd be fun for you. I see. The funny thing is, I got sick really bad. So the day after Christmas of 2019 to January like 5th or 6th, I was sick so bad, and I thought it was like bronchitis because my cough was everywhere. I thought it was a bad cold too, similar to what you were saying. And it wasn't until afterwards where I took like the little test that showed the your what is it, the antigens, is that what they call it?
Yes.
That I had it as well, and I was like, whoa, like, so I had it before anyone even knew it was a thing back in December. I remember because I was sick as a dog. New Year's Eve, I had plans that year, and I was in bed by 4:30 p.m. and I didn't wake up until like 10 a.m. the next day. That's how sick I was. I was sick as a dog. So it was not a good thing. And then afterwards, like I said, I was like, oh my gosh, that COVID thing really kicked my butt. It was not a fun experience. Not at all. So I can understand why a lot of things were shut down, especially when nobody knew what was going on. Nobody had any idea. Yeah. And it's interesting that you say about the Hong Kong thing is because or their experience in Hong Kong, because I was still working with kids at the time, and we had some kids from China that were wearing masks, like coming back wearing masks. And and I didn't really think anything of it. To me, I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe they're trying to stay warm, anything like that. And it wasn't until after a few months, I'm like, man, they were ahead of that. Yeah, they were ahead of that. Yeah, we were kind of slow. Because they were already wearing masks, sanitizing. Some kids were double masking, and I just was like, oh, okay. I mean, whatever. Like, so we had some staff members that were like, oh, you got to take the mask off. Like, you got like you're inside. Like they didn't know. Like at the time.
Yeah.
Like, now, obviously, there was a point in time where like it was like, wait, you're not wearing your mask? What? Put it on. But back then, it was just wild. It was wild, and like you said, like everything happened. It was so sudden. We lost a lot of things, and so but great to see that you're still doing work. You're doing great things. We did talk about your impressive resume a little bit. Before we get into all your accomplishments, I want to ask you, what about modeling was it that got you into modeling? What is it that you were like, hey, I'm pretty good at this thing?
It's kind of crazy because I was such a tomboy as a kid. I grew up with my three.
You played basketball for the school, right?
Yeah, basketball and volleyball. I definitely I don't know. I wasn't like a girly girl or anything. I wasn't like a tomboy in high school per se. But I don't know. It wasn't like, oh, I want to be I hate the center of attention. So I was like, yeah, nope, not me. Like, especially basketball. Like, oh my God, I love playing, but I was like, I don't want people looking at me. It was just like, I've always been like that. So I just remember like being like 12 years old, and like even before that, people would be like, oh, you should be a model. You're so tall and skinny. And I'm like, no, like I'm all set. But I remember being 12 and I was like looking through I remember those like Tiger Beat magazines or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. There is something about it that I felt like I related to, and I don't even know how to explain it today. But then I started kind of getting like obsessed with this idea of just like, I don't know, like the art of modeling. And I didn't know anything about it, but I'd be like, wow, that picture is like telling a story, but they're not talking. They didn't write anything about it. It's just a photo. So I got kind of like interested in that. And I said to myself, I was like, I think I'm going to pursue this one day. I don't know when, but I want to do it. And it's not to be like pretty, because I never even thought I was pretty. I never even cared, to be honest. I was just like, it was just something that intrigued me. And then I got scouted in a mall at the Pheasant Lane Mall in Nashua. And then I kind of like took little baby steps there, and, Six Flags got scouted, but it was all kind of like sketchy stuff. And my mom's like, she was always like, she's not eating a plate of lettuce. Like, she's not doing that. Like, she was just wicked strict, which I'm pretty thankful for, because I got to like be a kid. Like, I got to
shout out mom. Shout out mom for that. Yeah.
Yeah, good job, Mom. But because once I was like kind of 18 when it really picked up, and I would model at 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds, and I think their moms wanted it a little bit more than they did.
Yeah.
So I remember one of them was like, I wanna hang out with my friends. I wanna like go learn how to drive. Like, I don't want to do this. And I remember just being like, man, I'm so thankful I got to like have my youth, because it's pretty scary. Like, if I don't even know how. If I would, when we have kids, like, I don't know if I'd want them to even get into that stuff. Because if you don't, like, if you're not going about it the right way, like, scary things can happen. And it can get scary. So for the 14 and 15-year-olds and their parents wanted it more than them, I always felt so bad. So I was always like, I'm so thankful my mom waited. So I did like mall stuff. I did like mall fashion shows. And, I don't even, it didn't happen overnight. I have people message me and they're like, how'd you become a model? And I'm like, yeah, it was like a bunch of small things, like, it wasn't like one thing happened. But yeah, I don't know. I just knew it. I was like, I'm going to do it because I'm going to make it happen. It's not going to just happen. I'm going to fight for it. And I was pretty persistent and consistent, but I still said to myself, I'm like, I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to like work my butt off. I'm going to use my trade, even though I do hair and it's not my passion. Like, I'll always have that in my back pocket. So luckily going to technical high school benefits in some ways, but I just was like, I'm gonna make sure I have like, a backup and another backup just in case this doesn't go the way I want it to go. But I was fortunate, and I've had a lot of, great opportunities,
Yeah, no, you definitely hustled for that. And and interesting point that you bring up about the 14 and 15-year-olds. I think a lot of times parents see the dollar signs and they think that you know what I mean. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm gonna monopolize this, or I'm gonna monetize this situation here, where it's really like you said. There's a lot of experiences that need to happen as a kid naturally, and that's why, I mean, unfortunate, but that's why sometimes you see a lot of those child actors or actresses. They kind of flake out by the time they're 20 or 21, 22, because they're developmentally, they just have not, they didn't get those experiences, they didn't get those things that everyday 19, 20-year-olds and even like early teens get. So kudos to your mom for recognizing that early and kind of being like, I'm gonna let her be a kid. And yeah, that's right, because you did Cosmo, right? So
Yes.
So you were you were with the hair. That was good. That was good. Yeah, you always had a safety net to fall back on in case anything did go south. So good for you. By the way, I see the photo of is that your wedding photo right behind you?
Oh yeah, that was a gift from my husband for, I think, our first anniversary. So yeah,
wow,
it has like our wedding song on the sides. You can't really tell from that far, but
wow, no, that's really pretty. No, I like it. I just noticed it when you moved your head. So sorry, circle back. So let's talk about some of the work you have done. Previously mentioned you were on some covers. Tell me what that was like. I mean, you see your face in these big ads now. What is that like?
It's pretty cool. I mean, I have covers that I haven't even shared because I'm my own worst critic. So I'm like, I'm not sharing that. I hate that photo. But no, I'm so thankful. I think one of my favorite covers was probably I was on a cover with my best friend Kelsey, who I lived with. So I actually don't have that. My mom has that cover. So I'm like, I need to get that back. But it's cool. It's like one of those moments where it sounds cheesy, but like you kind of pinch yourself and you're like, oh my God, I did that. What the hell? Like, that's pretty cool, you know? But sometimes I don't know, like it's gonna go on a cover. I don't always know where everything's gonna go, which is kind of crazy for most of it, actually. So like Pantene, I didn't know that was going to be in Vogue. I had no idea where that was going to be. There's some jobs that I forget that I did because I don't know where it went. Like, it literally just, like, I don't know, could be anywhere in the world right now. It could have just been not published. Like, I have no idea. So it's one of those things you have to kind of like hunt and find yourself, or get lucky and like someone finds you first, which is a lot of the ways I found out I'm in magazines. Is like, luckily in our industry, like, we all tag each other. Instagram's like a pretty important part of the industry. So like, you know, all your friends, they see you, they tag you, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was a thing. You know, I never seen that photo before. So it's kind of crazy. And like, I've had people, like, I had a friend in Germany one day, like, and she just tagged me. She's like, oh my God, you're in a store in Germany. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know that. Like, that's crazy. Like, I'm so glad you're there, because I would have never known, you know?
Yeah, you're in another country and you didn't even know it. You were in a whole nother country.
I know, it's crazy. So it's like, even when I went to Italy, I did the Zara campaign, and I didn't know if I was like in their store. So I was like trying to find it, and like, you're just literally like in another country. Like, am I going to see myself? And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So it's cool, but it's funny because like, it's not like they're like, hey Tayla, you have a job tomorrow, you're going to be on a cover of a magazine. It's usually not like that. Like, sometimes you might know stuff, but it's all a mystery. You actually, for like an email, like, you'll get your schedule at 6:00 at night for the next day, not for the week, for the next day. And, you know, you could have nothing, or you can have like 100 things. And then I'm like asking my agent, like, which one's more important? Because I don't know if I can physically make it to 3 of these at the same time, you know, like, and they're like, if you can't make it to this one, that's all right. But I don't know. It's crazy. Like, you don't really get much. You get a destination, a time, and sometimes a number if you get lost. Like, it's nuts. You don't really know what you're doing until you get there, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is exciting. I've done a couple of acting shoots where that's happened, where I didn't know, and then I got a call at like 4:30 in the morning that day, and they were like, hey, you're going to be in this location. And I'd be, what? And then, like, similar to you, and then all of a sudden I'd get a text from somebody else being like, oh, there's another job here at this time. And, you know, like, you almost have to balance yourself of being like, oh, wait, which one is, like you said, for lack of a better terms, more important? But
Mm-hmm.
that's really wild that you said that you don't even know if you're going to be in some of these catalogs or magazines or something like that. So you theoretically you could have had taken photos and they're in magazines or catalogs or whatever, and you don't even know it right now.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a ton. And I like think about it and I'm like, man, I wish I like knew right away. Like, cause when I first started, I didn't really, I was in it, you know, I was just figuring it out. I didn't have anyone really telling me like, this is how this works, do this, do that. So I started realizing it. And when I first moved to New York, it was 2016. And like Insta stories weren't a thing yet. Like it was like pretty basic, which is, I feel like sounds crazy. So once like Insta stories started happening, that's when I kind of felt like I was finding out more stuff that I was in. Cause like I said, like I was getting tagged in like a story. And then it's weird because you're like, sometimes I didn't even know the people. And I'm like, how do they know me? Like what? Like, or at one time I was scrolling and this is pretty early on. I'm scrolling. I'm like, that girl looks so familiar. And I like double took and I'm like, shut up. That's me. Like I didn't even recognize myself. And it was just on a sponsored page. And I was like, oh my God, like that's weird. Like I didn't even know that was a thing.
Like you said, it's like surreal. Yeah, because you're like, wait a minute, what? Like, what do you mean that's me? And that must be so wild because you're constantly going, you're doing things all the time, and you're doing all these jobs that you don't even remember, like what you could do, and you're like, oh wait, could that be me? Oh wait, that is me. Yeah, there you go. There, I'm right there. Yeah.
It's so weird. And like, I don't know, like I would call like my mom sometimes and be like, this just happened. Like, I can't believe this. And like, it really was like, I was living a dream and like, I just was so thankful and I'm still thankful. But like when you're in it and it's that busy, it's just like, holy crap, this is happening. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm very fortunate.
Hey, I'm applauding you because that's awesome. No, good for you. Good for you. And like I said, I've known you for a while, so I've seen the hard work that you've put in. So, no, you're doing great things. And speaking of which, your runway work too. I saw some photos and videos of that too. I give you a lot of kudos because I like to think I'm a pretty confident individual, but that's got to be a whole different animal. Am I right? Like what's like? Am I wrong? I could be completely wrong. Like what's that like?
Oh my God. I remember being super intimidated by runway, especially learning runway in New England. I had like a New Hampshire agency and like, I was just like, I don't like runway. I like print, whatever, like print work, you know? But I actually think it might be my favorite, cause it's the thrill of it is so crazy. And like, not for nothing, you are getting tossed around sometimes, which isn't like good, but you're getting like thrown onto the runway and then you have to act like you're fine. Like I didn't just get like freaking manhandled out here because the whole setup was all out of order and I'm like more clothed than the person behind me. Like, you know, there was definitely scary moments and you're just like, well, just pretend you're okay. And like, you have to have like a serious face on. But I don't know. It's just something about it. You're like, holy shit. And I used to be like I had stage fright and for some reason I just don't anymore. And I think it's from runway. Like you have no choice. You just have to get out there and it's about the clothes. It's not about you. And I think sometimes people don't realize that, but I remember it was my first fashion week, like real fashion week. I was in the package. Like you have to be in like the fashion week package. And I did a show for Brooks Brothers and Katie Holmes was there. And so I'm pretty like still learning everything. And she's talking to the designer and she's like, oh, she's beautiful. And she's looking at me and I'm like, oh my God, Katie Holmes just said I'm beautiful. But now I look back and I'm like, oh, that's what they call the outfits like she, like her, like it's like a person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, she was definitely talking about the outfit, not me. I'm pretty sure. Because like I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is like new to me. This is like a big show. Like, you know, it was really serious. And I was just like, oh my God, Katie Holmes is like right here, like arm's length. And she's just called me beautiful. But no, she's literally talking about the outfit. And that's what they'd be like, oh yeah, she looks great. She this, that. And I'm like, oh wow, I'm just standing here doing nothing. Like, but now I know it's really about the clothes. It's not about you. So you're just like essentially a walking mannequin kind of, but I don't know. It's still really fun. I've done a lot of shows where I don't know. I'm just like, this is sick, but you really are getting like thrown onto it and you just have to make it work. Like it's chaos backstage. I can't even describe to you how chaotic it is sometimes. If it's not chaotic, you're like, what's going on? Is this even going to happen? Like, why aren't people running around like crazy? You have like random people you don't even know, like dressing you, and you're just like, oh, thank you so much. Like, and it's just, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like that's like a huge thing I learned throughout like all these experiences. And then there's like a fine line. You obviously don't want to force being like a certain uncomfortable where it's just not necessary. But
yeah,
you're like, it's crazy.
You're like, why is the guy who parked my car dressing me? I mean,
yeah, literally, you never know. Hey, I wouldn't even be surprised. It's crazy.
Wow, no, you know what? And you know what? Own that, Tayla, because no, she was talking about you too. All right, own that. Even though it was that's crazy. See, that's behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people don't know. They think you just runway and you know, you strut a little bit, you look fine, and then you go back. I thought that. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that you had all the time in the world. You could go change. You could do whatever you want. And it's kind of crazy that you're rapidly. You know, it's like a revolving door. You're always moving. You're always going. So, wow, that's wild. That is insane.
I can't even, like, I'd be in a show, but it'd be at the same time as another show. And, like, I'd get out of the show and I'd get changed and then my regular clothes, get an Uber. And my agent's like, you need to be there, like, now. And I would, like, get there and they'd be like, we have to make her look completely different. And it's like scary because you have like 6 people on your head, like pulling and like all this stuff. And like, they're like, whatever, keep the makeup the same at this point if you're lucky. And then you just get thrown on stage and you're like, I didn't even know what I looked like in the last show. Here I am now. Now I got to go to another show. It's kind of wild. It's just weird. It's like, I learned, like, after a few times doing it, like, it's okay. Like, you're eventually going to just be there. And even if you have 5 minutes, you'll be fine. Like, they'll figure it out. But I remember freaking out. I'm like, there's no way this is possible. Like, how am I supposed to do this? You figure it out.
I got to be honest with you. I've never done it, and my anxiety is going a little thinking about it. So, like you said, it probably really is like a baptism by fire type of thing. You just get thrown into it, and that really... you almost like you get calloused to like being able to handle it because I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, there's no way I could do it. But then hearing you talk about it and you're like, well, at first I was nervous, but now I'm okay with it. It's probably one of those things where it's like you really had to kind of like build yourself up to it. Especially, I mean, you said you saw Katie Holmes in one of your first few ones. That's seeing someone who's pretty high up there in one of your first few ones. That must have been a gnarly experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's crazy because they're like, I feel so silly now looking back on it. And I'm like the type of person that like, I'll go to bed if I am home, like I'll go to bed early. I'll like get my lunch packed. Like I'm like, I have to be at my best tomorrow and I'll do my homework. Like I'll look up like the designer and stuff, but I still sometimes show up like clueless, like even though I like prepared, you know? And this is like sort of embarrassing, but like, I had no idea what Zara was, like the brand. Like in New England, I think the only Zara there is like the Natick Mall or something like that I can think of. But I didn't know what Zara was. So when I had the casting for it, it's like Zara's like a big deal. I was like, oh, maybe it's makeup. But I honestly had so many castings that day. I didn't do my homework and I didn't even Google it for once. And I remember this and I remember being like, I'm so stupid, but it might have helped me actually. Cause I wasn't nervous. Like I wasn't like, oh my God, but I think I had like a Nike and another casting that day that to me was like more important, you know? And, so I remember texting my agent. I'm like, oh man, this casting's making me late to my other stuff. Like, can I leave? Like, I don't know what's taking them so long. And they're like, no, just stay. And they weren't like saying like, oh no, that's super important. Like, you know, just stay or whatever. Not that it's not, they're all important, but like, you know, there's certain name brands you see and you're just like, oh my God, I had that casting. Like, all right, I got to make sure. So it kind of made me late for my castings, but I left and I ended up booking it. And I'm like, oh, cool. I got that one. And then I get there and then I realized like Zara's like a big brand and like Craig McDean shot it and he shoots like only celebrities. So, and it ended up being like a 2-day thing. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was going through school at the same time, UMass Lowell, but I was all online. So like we had 2 long days and I was doing my homework and I'm sitting on a couch because like I was trying to concentrate, and I was on his couch, and someone comes up to me and they're like, oh, you're on like Craig McDean's couch, you have to like move. And I'm like, oh, not realizing like how important this guy is. And I'm just like, man, I was such an amateur, what the heck. So then I ended up, that's the first thing that I know of that I was like in stores like all around the world and like on their website, and it was like a huge deal. And I pan out now and I'm like, I can't believe like I didn't even know what Zara was. Like it just blows my mind that I had no idea.
I can't believe I was just casually sitting on the couch doing my homework while
I'm like so embarrassed. Like this guy's probably like, what the hell? Like, you know, but I was like, I'm just doing my homework, like trying to be like a good student, like whatever. But yeah, so it's just wild. Like, and a part of me does feel like if I knew how big it was, maybe it would have like affected like me getting it. I don't know, because sometimes when you're nervous, it might show. You know.
That is true. I honestly, maybe it was for the better that you kind of went in naive, not knowing, because then it was just kind of like you were your genuine self. Not saying that you're not normally, but it's just one of those things where you're like, oh man, like I don't know, and I'm just doing my homework, like,
Yeah.
and now I'm here doing the shoe. So you rejected a Nike one that day, or is that what it was?
No. I still went to it. I still went to the casting, but it was like hitting close to like this casting's overlapping.
Yeah.
So my mind was just more focused on like the Nike one because like I knew that off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I didn't have to do like homework for that. And then I think it was like another big one was like CoverGirl or something like that. And granted, I didn't get those, but it didn't matter. I think actually Zara was probably the number one of the castings.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful for my agent because he was up like figuring that out like for me because it was so last minute. I think I found out the day before, but so did my agent, you know. So it was just like a lot of paperwork. It was like my first big thing I ever did, and even doing the shoot, I didn't realize how big it was. But there was like fashion models, they flew in from all over the world, like, and it's like high fashion's different. Like you might not know all their names, but like once you're in the high fashion industry, like you start to like realize like who is who and whatnot. So when I went to Milan, like shortly after that, I saw a lot of the girls that were in the Zara shoot. So it was kind of cool because I was like, oh my God, like I have friends in like other parts of the countries because of that shoot, you know? And then now I'm in a different part of the world and I see them. So it was pretty cool.
That
it's
is
definitely like a big experience for me.
Yeah, that is wild. No, you're killing it. I like I said, you're doing a great job. I mean, that's wild. I can't even fathom being in that predicament and where you're cutting it close. And same thing. I obviously I'm not in the fashion or model industry. I know I look like I could be people, but I'm not. All jokes aside, Nike, I probably would have same thing. Been like, oh, even me, I know CoverGirl. You know what I mean? Like, because I've seen the ads on TV and magazines and things like that. So even I knew that, but I didn't know about Zara. But that's kind of wild that person that was doing that shoe also does like the biggest names in that industry as well. So good for you. It sounds like you and your agent had your head screwed on the right way that day. So worked out for the best.
Yeah, it worked out. It's funny though because I would like tell people back home like, oh, I just did a job for Zara. Same thing though. They didn't know what it was, you know.
Yeah.
So I had to like show that like I don't know. You might know now that you heard it kind of, but it's just funny because like I'm like I had no idea like it was a big brand like that. So and I'm like maybe it's makeup. I don't know, but I didn't even check. Like I usually am good about that, and I didn't.
It sounds like it could be makeup too, though. I'm just saying when you said it, I was like, oh, that sounds like a cool makeup brand or something like that. Yeah, like well, yeah. I mean, there's thousands of makeup brands. So, yeah, no, for sure. I definitely would have thought the same thing. Definitely. Now, the music video that you did, right? That's pretty cool. You did it with Daddy Yankee and the Joe Bros, Jonas Brothers. That's insane. What was that like?
Oh, my God. That was actually – so the casting for that, there was so many people at that casting. And I remember being like, ooh, like, do I have time to stay here for like 2.5 hours? And I ended up leaving, going to like another casting, coming back. They still didn't call my name. And I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Like, that's how many people were there. And I remember we were in a group and like they took like 5 or something at a time and they asked us to dance. And I'm like, oh, what the heck? I like don't know how to do that stuff. So we're all like awkwardly dancing. I forget what the song was that they put on. We don't know what this music video is for either. Like we knew nothing. And then I remember seeing myself like in the camera and like being like, yeah, I didn't get that. Like that was embarrassing. And I remember like going home and being like, I definitely bombed that. That was stupid, but whatever. And then I got the call sheet for it, and I like was like, no way. Like, did she send this to the wrong person? Like, what? So I'm thinking, I forget what the time frame was. I think it was like 12 to like 7 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh, super easy. Like, so I brought a couple snacks, whatever. No, we were filming until 3 in the morning. So like I was not prepared for that at all. And it was so tiring. And I give people who work and film like so much credit because I just had no idea what to expect. And that my feet were bleeding. Like they were getting like stepped on by other people's heels. And like I was in heels for like hours and we were just so tired. And all we had was candy. Like we just kept eating candy. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like starting to like make me just feel sick like a little kid. Like I have a stomach ache from just eat because we just like all were trying to stay up and like they were like, oh, soon. And no, we literally stopped filming at 3:30 in the morning. It was like insane, but it was still so cool. Like the experience itself, I'd do it again, but next time I will be more prepared. Like mentally
and hopefully without the blisters on your feet.
Oh my God, no, it was like seriously, like I was like, I hate complaining, but man, like it was just like my feet were like broken. I was like, oh, this is nuts. But it was cool because like you met so many different talent that day too. There was kids there that were dancing and they were like so freaking incredible. And like it was such a cool experience. And we didn't know for hours like what this video was for. So we're all dolled up and they keep retouching our makeup because like we've been there for so long and like we're like, what is this for? And then we eventually realized like, oh my God, this is actually pretty sick. And the song was like fun. And then someone told me one day, like, oh my God, like that song's going to be on Times Square. And I was like, what? Like, they're like, yeah, they're going to put the music video on Times Square. And I'm like, oh my God. So I told my roommate, Kelsey, and like we all went and I told my agent and my agent's like, what? So she told a lot of other people in my agency that were in it. And that was just like, seriously, I was like, if I die tomorrow, I'm good. Like that was like on my bucket list to be in Times Square and to see yourself in Times Square is just like, what the heck? Like that's insane. So that was cool.
The city that never sleeps. I saw the on your Instagram the video of it. So did you ever get to meet the Jonas Brothers or Daddy Yankee or anything like that?
So we met the lead singer, Sebastian Yatra. We met him. We didn't meet Daddy Yankee. Well, it's funny because I didn't know the Jonas Brothers were there. And then I'm like on the phone, I'm pretty sure with my husband. And I'm like, I think Nick Jonas is like right there. And he was like, what? And I was like, I gotta go. And I'm like walking and I'm like, that's weird. Maybe it wasn't. So I'm thinking I saw Nick Jonas in my head. And I was like, that was like, and I'm like tired, you know? And
I was going to say, you've been up late dancing for 9 hours at this point.
Yeah. And then I find out it is Nick Jonas. I was like, oh my God. But I'm not the type of person when I see a celebrity where I'm like, oh my God, hi. Like I couldn't do that. Like I just don't think I would. Maybe it depends, I guess. But no. So I was like, I'm kind of glad I didn't really know 100% it was him because I don't know what I would have done. I would have just been like, oh my God, what?
Yeah, you're like
no, it was cool.
I grew up listening to you and watching the silly TV show that was on Nickelodeon for only a month.
Yeah. For only a month.
I don't know. It wasn't that successful, but no, their singing career is definitely a lot better than their acting careers for sure. But no, that's incredible. But like you said, you're totally right in terms of like the acting thing because I've been on some sets and all of a sudden it like you said, few hours that I'm like, oh, that's not too bad, and then all of a sudden I'm there and it's like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I'm like, I'm repeating the same lines over and over. I've been doing it since I got there at like 2 in the afternoon. I've been here for 12 hours saying the same lines over and over, and it gets really mentally exhausting. You're right. I give the big time film people a lot of credit because the constant repetition is so, and then sometimes you like forget the continuity of it. You know, like it's like, oh, was my hand in my pocket? Was it, was I scratching my head? Like you forget it because your mind is not wired to be standing in the same spot doing the same thing for 13, 14 hours. And in your case, it looked like a rave type of feel. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you were all like dancing with like what, like glow sticks and like it was like that
But
kind
we
of
have
vibe,
like
right?
legit disco balls, like, and there's so much that didn't go in the music video. Like there was a lot that like I did see, and I was like, oh my god, like I definitely was in it more. Like I can see myself a few times. You have to slow it down and stuff, but no, there was like stuff we were doing with the disco balls that almost felt unnatural, and I'm like, what are we doing with? Why are we like smiling, holding a disco ball? Like this is so they probably kind of gathered that as they were watching it, that that's so not like natural.
Yeah.
To just like but there was so much more that we filmed, so it's funny to see like what actually got into the video. But yeah, it was just like it was a lot of dancing, and like I don't even really like to dance like that, so to do that for hours on hours on hours, you literally kind of forget like what you're doing. You're like, wait, what's dancing? Like what, like, you have to remember, like, don't like look tired, like whatever, like your posture. And everyone was just like, oh my god, I'm so tired. Like,
Yeah, they were
and
gassed
the thing
out.
was
Yeah.
like I had other, yeah, and we had other things that day, some of us. So some of the people had to like not go to their other jobs. So
Oh
it was
wow.
just like no one really expected it. But now that I've had that experience, like I think I would go into like any filming like that. Like, okay, I should make sure I have 2 days clear because I will probably be here for 2 days.
And
Shooting
maybe
the
some
same
of
thing
your
over.
own snacks other than just gummy worms and Sour Patch Kids and
Oh,
things like that.
yeah. I was seriously like, I never hated candy so much in my life. I was like, oh my god, this is too much. But you're tired, so it's the only thing that could, keep you up.
Yeah, and they want your energy to keep going. That they want you to kind of like
Yeah.
look like you're like you said, unnaturally dancing with disco balls. That's funny. That's funny. Sometimes I wish you could get a B-roll of that stuff, because that is kind of funny when you like
I
kind of
know.
think about it. You're like, whoa, that'd be kind of silly to just see how I was in that time. So no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Good for you. Good for you. Previously stated, you had talked about success and how a lot of people think it's kind of like an overnight thing. I think especially with Instagram and social media nowadays, people think, "Oh, I can see, like you said, I see that she's on Times Square. She must have just had one big break and now she's there." But as we've also said earlier in the episode, I've had you on social media for years, so I've seen the hard work you've been putting in. So, can you share some obstacles that you went through that maybe some people didn't see, which helped you get to the point of your career right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. Like there was even like when I traveled, like people were like, "Oh my god, it's so crazy! You're in Hong Kong, you're in Milan, and you're here and there." And it was like interesting because there was a lot that happened, like with learning about myself on those experiences. And I learned like I actually like traveling alone. Like I was scared. Like before I went to Italy, I was like, "Oh my god, I've never done this by myself.
Yeah.
Like this is like nerve-wracking." And then you're going to an agency that you don't really know, but they liked you from meeting you for 5 minutes in New York City, whatever. And when I got to Milan for Milan Fashion Week, I didn't have the greatest experience, but I wouldn't like. I'm glad it happens. Like I feel like it helped me like move forward the rest of like my career as well. And same with Hong Kong, which was kind of not that great of an experience. But Milan, I got there and they used the word I'm too puffy at the time. Like they didn't say you're fat. They said you're like too puffy, but you need to lose like this many inches by tomorrow morning. And I was like, that's impossible. Like I've never been smaller than I am now. And what do you mean by tomorrow morning? And they kind of like took it like, you're not what we expected, which is like, I already met them in person. So they're like, we're not really going to send you off into all these shows until like you're what we expect. And it kind of made me mad. I'm like, what the hell? Like, no, like I'm going to book shows. So it kind of like, fueled me a little bit. And I
Yeah.
ended up booking shows. And I was like so proud of myself because I was like, I'm not leaving here until I do something, like something big. And, I made connections, I made the best of it. And then unfortunately my great grandmother, she passed away while I was there and she was already sick, but I went home for that. And they were like, oh, we want you to come back. And I was like, yeah, we'll see about that. Like, like it was kind of like I showed them like, just because I wasn't what you wanted doesn't mean
Yeah.
I wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I think I needed that experience because my big thing is it's not just like a pretty picture. It's like, it's a big teamwork. Like if it's a shoot, like it's not just about the model because it's the only person you see. It's about the photographer. It's about the hair and makeup. Hair and makeup, I gotta give them props because anytime I didn't have a great experience, they were the ones making sure the models are okay. If it's you having a good experience or not, like they are always like, are you okay? Like, do you need food? Do you need water? Do you want to message your agent because what just happened wasn't okay? Like, so it's like a team thing. And I feel like sometimes people forget like how important hair and makeup is because they're on set making sure everyone looks great and like they're just as important as everyone else, you know? But I definitely needed that experience because I came back to New York and I was just like, I had like this fuel on me. I'm like, oh my God, like I felt like for a minute I could have let them like kind of bring me down and stop me from feeling like good about myself, but I took it and I was like, no, you have to like love yourself and you have to appreciate and believe in yourself, and that's what's going to get you work. And you're lucky if you have an agency that believes in you too, which isn't always the case. But that experience, I feel like that was hard, and no one, like, you look at pictures, I mean, Milan, no one's going to realize like the behind the scenes of all that, of like how difficult that was for me. Like, and I didn't want to give up, but I was like, you know what, giving up would have been letting them kind of bring me down and keep me down, because I could have just been sad and not tried to. And you know what I did too? I ended up going to castings that I don't even think my agency like set me up for, but I was with people and I'm like, I'm going to go to that. And I like booked it. I was like, I don't care. It kind of made me, I care too much. I'm the type of person that over cares. And it's like sometimes not like the greatest thing. So it kind of made me just not care, like in the sense of like, I'm going to show them like what I'm capable of doing. So I think that's one thing that I feel like definitely was a big part of my like growth in the industry.
Wow.
Early on too.
That's amazing. No, that's an incredible story, because to have so much confidence and to have someone who you met already, they were kind of high on you, and then all of a sudden they just kind of like, nah, actually there's a couple things, like that can be really debilitating. So I mean, I think I think it's impressive that you had the mentality to say, you know what, I'm going to do this for me, and I'm not going to do this for you. I mean, obviously, sorry about your great-grandmother. I know you said that. So there was a bunch of things that were challenging at that point in your life, but you definitely strived, and you definitely pushed through, and you fought through it. And because I think a lot of times when it comes to things like that, it's a mental thing. You know, it's am I not good enough type of thing. And you can have a million people believe in you, but if that one person kind of hits the nerve the right way, it stings a little bit. It's like, oh man, like, yeah, you got me. Even though you don't want to admit it, like for you, it must have been cool to be like, nah. If you're lucky, if I can fit it in my schedule, I'll go ahead and do it, type of deal.
Yeah, and it's like, it's funny because I can be really sweet, but once I like have like that fire in me, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna kill you with so much success right now. Like, I don't even know how, but it's gonna happen. And you know, I remember I went to a Gucci casting off the airplane. I was on our airplane got delayed. So I was at the airport for hours, and then I was on the plane for like 9.5 hours. So I'm like jet lagged. I'm tired. I just got done New York Fashion Week to start Milan Fashion Week. So it was like nonstop. And when I got there, I went to Gucci, and they were very quick with me. They were like, yeah, I waited for a while, and they were like, oh yeah, we're like, no thanks. And I was like, oh my God, what the heck? And like, granted, I don't know their language. I don't know like anything. I'm in a different country. So I'm overwhelmed. I'm carrying my suitcase to castings. And so I get to the agency, and they're like, oh, now I know why that was so fast, like that casting, like, because you look like that. And I'm like, what? Like, I haven't slept. Like, I've been sitting for like hours. Like, my legs hurt. So I'm like, what the hell? Like, and it was just, to me, I was just like, you know what? They didn't even like give me a chance to like to get settled in. And my roommate was from London, and she ended up leaving 2 days after because she just was like, no, I can't do this. So, and I remember saying to her, even though I was in the same, like, I felt the same exact way, I was like, just stay, like, let's do it together. And she ended up leaving. But, you know, I mean, it's hard. Like, it's like taking criticism like that from people. If I was younger, I don't know how I would have felt. I probably would have just been calling my mom crying, like, please bring me home, you know? But I was a little older, and I don't know, like I had something to prove to myself, and it wasn't even about them anymore. So yeah.
No, you had some experience that kind of helped you have a little bit of a tougher skin and things like that. Which honestly, this conversation is great because it kind of segues to my next point, which is what I want to talk about of modeling just having a lot of insecurities with rejection, people's comments, and then even your own personal self-doubt. So can you give some advice to some people who are not in the industry who lack the self-confidence that you said that, hey, if I was a little younger, it probably would have hit me pretty hard. So what advice could you give for some people who are looking to get in the field, but they kind of lack that, that necessary skill?
I think honestly, my big thing is just like being true to yourself. That's what like kept me going, was like, I was like, I'm going to be true to myself. It's okay to say no to things that like just are like, if that's if your morals, like, and they're going to try and say like too bad, which happens. Like I had so many shoots where like, too bad you're doing this. And I'm like, I don't, what? Like, okay. But then you have a moment and you're like, oh my God, I have to do this. No, you don't have to do that. Like my big thing was I was never going to do like any nudes or anything. Cause I'm like, no, I don't want my mom seeing stuff. I don't feel comfortable. I'm gonna have kids one day. Like, no. But like the amount of times like photographers would try to like push you, like, oh my God, like you can't say no, like you'll never make it in this career. Like there's certain things said to you and you're like, you really have to think for a minute, like, oh my God, are they right? Like if I don't do this, like, is this gonna mess up my career? And it's like, no, it's okay to say no, but like be true to yourself. Like, and being professional, you still gotta be professional. Like I've definitely worked with some people that are like, I'm not doing that. And it's like certain things that are like, well, that's something, not like your morals aren't gonna be taken away for doing your job, So there's like that fine line. Like I'm super professional, and like the more you do, maybe the more opportunities you have, but there's certain things that like it's just not necessary. Like I did I forget what the brand was called, but I did a job and it was for like shoes, and the person was really like trying to get like more like nudes and stuff, and I'm like, this is for shoes. This job is for shoes. So why? No, I'm not stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like. And like I said, I'm older now, and I'm like realizing like maybe if I was 16, 17, 19 years old, I would have been like, oh my God, like this sucks, but I have to do it. But where I was older and I was like, hell no. And it was the photographer just being kind of like creepy, and like it happens all the time, and you just have to be careful. And that's why like there's certain parts of the industry it's scary. Like you have to kind of use your head a lot, and just think like, is that the right thing to do right now? So I think just being true to yourself and standing your ground is so important, even if you think your agent might be upset with you in the moment. But as long as you are happy and you're doing what's best for you, like I think that's where like the confidence really holds up. Because I don't know, like I never, like I said, like it's never just a pretty picture to me. I never really was like, oh my God, I look so good in that. Like I never had that, but it's more like I felt good inside. And that sounds so corny, but it's like seriously, like when I look at a picture, no matter what it is, I remember what I felt when I was shooting. I don't really think of it like, like, oh, that's me, I'm so cool or something like that. It's more like, oh man, I remember that like it was yesterday and I felt good about that, or like that was super fun or something like that. So I think that, like, to me, that's, at least for me, that's where my confidence came in, is like your inner strength.
So for you, well, that's pretty impressive, because for you, it's more of like this means something to me. This isn't just something of like, hey, I'm a pretty face representing your product. It's like, no, like this means something to me. This is who I am. This is my core values. This is what I believe in. This is what I stand for. Wow, that's wild. And the whole creepy shoe guy or whatever. Oh my God, that's sad. I mean, there's a lot of sick people, like, like you said, like those bastards that are like, oh, hey, you're 15, 16. Let me try to, see what I can get away with. And those poor innocent people are probably like, oh yeah, like if I, but you got to say no, because if you give an inch to those people, they'll make a mile out of it. So they're really, it's really unfortunate. But like you said, use your head. Anyone who wants to get into modeling, use your head. Make those decisions to kind of keep yourself away from those weirdos, those creeps. That's unfortunate. But I'm glad you stuck your ground. I'm glad that you were like, nope, this is what I'm doing. This is what I believe in. My hooks are deep in this. I'm not gonna do it to compromise my values, because I feel like once you compromise yourself, you almost lose. Like there's no kind of getting that back. Once you kind of like, hey, I'm going to let this happen this one time, even though you do, it may be one time, it's still one time that you sold yourself short and didn't fight for yourself and believe in yourself. So no, I think that's awesome. And you've always seemed to be that type of individual that's like self-love, self-confidence, that type of thing. So good for you. No, good for you. I give you, you get a clap.
Oh, thank you.
Your modeling face is so on point. So I'm now going to go ahead and have a new segment, and you're going to help coach me up, all right? Ready? So this segment is specifically catered to your episode here. Help me with a modeling face, because how do I get my modeling face going? What do I need to do?
Oh, man. So it's kind of funny because when I moved to New York, so I did some stuff in this area, and it's like TJ Maxx and like all this stuff that is like Boston. It's more like smile, like whatever. So I remember my first shoot ever in New York City, and I looked like a boy. I called my mom. I got lost on the subway. I'm literally like in the Bronx, and like it was part of the subway that like came out of the ground. Like that's how far I went. Like it wasn't underground anymore. And I'm literally crying to my mom, like, I don't even understand how to use the subway, and I look like a boy. So I send it to my mom. I'm on the phone with her, and she's laughing, and she's like, you kind of do look like a boy. And I'm like, oh, my God, like, lie to me next time. Like, what the hell? Telling you right now, that shoot got me, like, all my big jobs right away. Like, that, I just love that shoot now because I look at it, and I'm like, I don't care what I look like. Like, that got me big jobs. That got me Zara. That got me Calvin Klein. Like, that got me so much stuff. But it's funny because I had, like, this is where the face thing came in. I was being told, like, stop smiling. And I'm like, oh, my God, what the hell? Like, that, I just like to smile. And it's funny because, like, I just don't know how to smile in a shoot anymore. Like, I'm so, like I just did a shoot with my husband. He was a champ. And they're, like, making us do lovey-dovey stuff. And I'm like, I'm not used to this. Like, I'm used to, like, New York straight face, like, get in the zone. But it's funny because I don't even know if I know how to show someone on like a Zoom. Like I actually really don't know if it's in me, but it's like when you're in the moment, like you kind of go off your feelings. And I was kind of mad. I was like, I want to smile, like what? And I'm such a rookie at this point. But the funny thing was I didn't feel good during that shoot, and I didn't know why. And I'm allergic to tree nuts, and I didn't know he smothered me in almond oil. So my ears were on fire, and I'm like, I don't feel good. But it's like, like famous people are like, you just got to do it. Like, you just got to suck it up. If you're sick, you keep shooting. So this is my mentality. I'm like, all right, I don't feel good. I'm literally thinking like I had Chipotle. Like, and I know there was like a thing about that at one point. So I'm like, oh my God, did Chipotle make me sick? Like, why do I feel like this? And I didn't realize until after I look and I'm like, oh my God, that's almond oil. But I was like, well, it's only when I eat almonds, right? No. I went home that day too, and I actually ended up having to go to the ER because it was so bad. And yeah, it was crazy. But that's what I think of too when I think of that shoot. And I'm like, I felt sick, so I'm like kind of mad. Like I was like pissed, and he was like loving it. He was like, "Oh, these are great." Like I said, like he's got me like a lot of my stuff. So sometimes I've had really bad experiences on set, and I'm like mad, and I'm not someone who gets mad easily. So I'm like pissed off, and like. Most of those pictures made it in Vogue, like all the ones where I'm mad. And I'm like, I was so mad that day. So it's so funny because I'm like, my mad face got me so much work. And I don't know how to just turn it on. It's like in your soul. Like you kind of just like, you're just like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. But you're still trying to work it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just funny how some of my shots where people love, they're like, how'd you do that face? I'm like, I was just either having an allergic reaction, which has happened multiple times in New York City with almonds, or like I was like really annoyed in the moment. And it worked for me. So I don't know. You just kind of have to focus and think of something.
I would struggle then because I'm with you. I'm a smiler through and through. I mean, yeah. I won best smile in high school for a reason. Like I'm a smile. Like I love to laugh. I love to. So I would be like the type that would be like. They would say smile. They wouldn't even say it. They would have the camera up, and I would just be like cheesing already. I'd be like yeah. That would be me. I can't.
It's so funny because I love smiling.
It's like to me, I'm like I don't even know how to like. Whenever I try to not smile in a photo, it's like I feel like I don't look like I feel like I look terrible. Like even like the other day, I was like, I don't even think I know how to smile without teeth. Like I don't know how to like I don't know how to do a smile that's like I don't know how to do it. So I mean, In other words, the best advice you can give me for my modeling face is just whatever I'm feeling in the moment. So if I feel like smiling, just smile in the moment. All right.
I guess so, because that's the best thing. Like I've had some shoots like Martha Stewart, and I'm literally like, I was actually going down memory lane, like looking at pictures the other day, and I'm laughing, and I'm literally like, they didn't say action yet. So it was me and this other kid, and he was really cool. He was really respectful. And I forget what we were talking about. I think we were talking about, oh, I remember now. We had one shot, and the ring I had from Martha Stewart, I think it was like 50 grand or something, right? So we had literally a bodyguard, not for me, but for the ring. So like he had a gun and everything for this set. And I'm like, oh my God. So we're outside in Chinatown and in New York City, and some guy's like coming up to me, and I don't know what he was saying, but he was being like weird and like whatever. And like now, the bodyguard's getting closer, like, oh my God, she has that really expensive ring on. And I said something, like I just said something like get out of here or something like that. Like the Lowell in me came out, I guess. Let's just say that. So we go to the next shoot, and the male model and I are laughing, and he was like, he's like, you were so nice, but oh my God, like you were so quick to tell that guy, like, go get out of here. So he's like, so we're literally laughing, and they're like, all right guys, we're done. And I'm like, no, we didn't shoot yet. And he's like, no, we got the shot. Like you guys were genuinely laughing, and we needed that, and we got it. Like we didn't even tell you guys action. So it is kind of funny. It's so in the moment. Like, so if you can smile in your shoots, it's got to be like, think of something that makes you happy. Don't just like keep smiling, because like then it gets weird and like awkward, like it's really like in the moment, or whatever the story is. Like you just got to pretend you're like that person, like you're an actor, but you have no words. So that's where like your face expressions are so important, because you need to tell your story, but you don't have lines, you don't have any other representation other than like your mood and your expressions. So I think it just depends on the story.
Yeah. One photo shoot that I did with someone, he goes, think of the funniest person that you know. In other words, think of me. That's what he's. And I genuinely laughed, because I was like, that was actually kind of funny. That was actually a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good thing
so that's what it is.
It's a good thing the lol didn't come out of you, and you just go tell him to like fuck off or pound sand or kick rocks, because
yeah, it was. Yeah, got to be professional. It was like very slight, but I was like, what the heck? But that's the thing. Like my mom was good about that. Like, you have to like watch your back. And I lived in Harlem by myself for a year. And it was funny because when people came to visit me, they're like, oh, Tayla, like, why do you, like, you live here? And I'm like, it's fine. And they're like, oh my God. Like, and my mom even was like, oh my God, you live here? You've been living here this whole time? I'm like, yeah, it's nice neighborhood. But it's like, it's good where we grew up,
Yeah. No, you make it work. I have a research question for you. Ready? Are you still into slush puppies?
Oh yeah, I haven't had one in forever, but watermelon is my favorite, actually.
Yeah. See, I do my research.
Oh, that's so funny.
I love slush puppies. I love slush puppies. Yeah.
I don't know where you can find them now. They don't have them like everywhere anymore.
I know it's not the same. It's not the same. But although I was gonna make a bad joke. I was gonna say they have a Jewel everywhere, though. I mean, I can tell you where you can find not that I do that, but geez, I mean, all those corner stores. I used to love them because they had like the slush puppies of the Italian ices, and now like I don't know if you remember, they used to have like the cooler in the corner. And then, with the Italian ices, or they used to have like the not the vending machines, the little dispensers that you could get the slush puppies, and now they don't have that stuff anymore. Yeah.
It was I don't even know what it's called or what it was called. Maybe it was like Little Peach back then. And that's
Little Peach.
He always went. Yeah. Yeah, and I was like, I always got a watermelon slush puppy. It was just like, what? I don't know. It's funny, but I haven't seen one in a long time.
Any projects coming up that you can share, or that you're, or like any, obviously if you can't share, if you're got to be secret about your projects.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's some stuff. I'm trying to think. Actually, you know what? No, I don't. I think I can't. So you'll see, I guess.
All right,
I have to remember what sign things for. But yeah, like my recent thing, my husband did a shoot with me, and that was fun. And he said to me, and I was like, oh, this is so good, because it's not easy. Like you're out when you do shoots, like you're doing a summer shoot, you're usually shooting those in the winter, so it's not like, oh, it's a summer day, like put on the summer outfit for like the summer launch. It's always like you're on off season all the time.
Yeah.
So I've like would be in Central Park wearing like dresses, pretending it's 90 degrees out when it's like 10 degrees out, and like when you're like bone chilled like that, it takes you like days to like defrost like inside and out, and like your body hurts. You're doing moves that aren't actually natural, but you have to make it natural. You might be in pain, but you better pretend you're just fine and dandy. So like we were doing certain things, and he was like, oh my God. And I'm like, you have like veins coming out. I hate that word, but I can't believe I just said it. But you have like veins coming out of your head and your neck. Like you have to like breathe. He's like, I'm in pain though. I'm like, yeah, me too, but you got to pretend you're not. So by the end of it, he's like, man, your job's hard. Like I knew it was hard, but like I'm sore. And I was like, yeah, see, modeling isn't like smile, cheese, like whatever. It's a lot of work, like mentally, physically, like, yeah.
It's more taxing than people realize. You hate the word veins?
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just not. Ugh.
Just.
I really can't believe I said it. I feel like I might black out in a minute, but.
Oh, we don't want. We don't want that.
Now everyone knows my secret.
Yeah, but don't bother her. She has Lowell in her. All right. She will bring it out if need be. So don't bother her about that.
So
we talked about your projects, and I know you weren't able to share some, which is. Absolutely, I get it, because sometimes, there's some, waivers that you have to kind of, but where can people find you so that way they can see all the hard work that you're putting in and things like that?
So Tayla Marie Official, my professional Instagram, that's where I post like all my recent stuff. I haven't been as active on it, which I think I took some of the COVID down chill time a little too seriously, and I started loving not being on social media. But I'm going to start posting again more and being better about that. But that's where I will post all like my big stuff coming out. So keeping it like consistent, like professional.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. I follow it. I'm a fan of the page. I appreciate, the work that you do, all the hard work you do. And thank you so much, Tayla, for coming on. It's been great. I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know we were trying to do something earlier, but you get called into shoots the day of and things like that, but I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
No problem. So thank you so much again for being a guest on the Reyes Reflection Podcast. That's going to do it for us today. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of the episodes. And as always, may you live, may you love, may you thrive. I'm Oprah in the male form, so I love you all.